Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking at something that is incredibly common, yet almost nobody talks about it out in the open. We're unpacking the hidden, completely invisible psychological toll that everyday family conflicts take on our minds. If you've ever felt just totally drained after a family argument, or say you grew up in a household where tension was just a normal part of the atmosphere, today we are going to reveal exactly why those experiences linger. It's not just in your head. Well, actually, scratch that. It is in your head, but in a very real, biological way.
We all kind of start with this fundamental expectation, right? Home is supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be the absolute safest place in the world. A place where you feel understood, protected, and loved. But the reality, for millions of people, home feels a whole lot more like a battlefield. Instead of open conversations, there are harsh arguments. Instead of love and warmth, there might be this heavy, punishing silence. And when stress becomes a daily routine in the exact place you're supposed to be resting, something genuinely dangerous begins happening behind the scenes.
All right, let's just dive right into this. While the emotional pain of a family fight is super obvious to us, our bodies are actually processing it in a fascinating and honestly somewhat alarming way. You might think your brain treats being chased by a wild animal very differently than being yelled at across the living room, but surprisingly, it doesn't. Your brain's survival system activates identically for both physical and emotional danger.
Which brings us to Section 1, your brain under stress.
To really understand why this happens, we have to look under the hood. And the foundational rule here is this. To your brain, stress is stress, period. It literally does not know the difference between a physical attack and a heated family argument. The exact same alarms are sounding in your central nervous system, regardless of whether you're dodging a physical blow or a devastating insult.
Let's walk through what that alarm actually feels like in your body. Imagine hearing people argue every single day. The moment those arguments escalate, your heart starts racing, your muscles tense up, your breathing becomes faster, your entire survival system activates in a split second. Now, this is a brilliant biological response if you need to sprint away from immediate physical danger, but what happens when the danger is just sitting across the dinner table from you day after day?
Well, that brings us to cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone released by the body during emergencies. When family conflict happens repeatedly, your body is just flooding your system with cortisol, releasing it again and again. Think of cortisol kind of like a fire alarm. It's incredibly useful if the house is actually burning down, right? But when family conflict becomes your everyday reality, it's like that fire alarm is blaring 24/7, just totally wearing your system down.
Moving on to Section 2, the invisible damage.
Because of that constant flooding of stress hormones we just talked about, the damage becomes invisible. Instead of a physical scar, chronic stress actually rewires how you think. You might find it significantly harder to focus on simple tasks. It becomes harder to sleep because your brain just won't shut off. It becomes harder to trust people. And suddenly, small, everyday problems begin to feel completely overwhelming. Your brain is essentially being rewired by the environment you're living in. Psychologists actually have a specific term for this phenomenon. It's called hypervigilance. Basically, this means living in a constant state of alertness, even when there's no immediate danger present. Because your brain has been conditioned to expect a sudden argument or conflict, it gets stuck in a permanent on position. It's constantly scanning the room, analyzing people's tones of voice, always anticipating the next threat.
If you've ever experienced this, you know the profound truth here. It is absolutely exhausting. Walking on eggshells in your own home drains your energy completely. It's a massive burden to carry, never truly being able to let your guard down and just relax. It takes a huge toll on your daily quality of life.
Let's move on to Section 3, why childhood matters.
When we apply this biology to a child, the stakes get so much higher. For kids, family is literally their entire world. Their developing brains are incredibly sensitive to their environment, and every single experience helps shape how they see themselves and how they see others. A supportive home builds a foundation of deep confidence, but a home filled with constant arguments and stress hormones, that can teach a child fear, insecurity, or emotional withdrawal. They're learning how the whole world works based entirely on the stress inside their house. And those early lessons, they stick around. Now, it's really important to note that these childhood patterns do not guarantee someone's future. You are definitely not locked into a specific fate. But as they grow up, these patterns can heavily influence relationships, self-esteem, and emotional habits well into adulthood. They cast really long shadow, affecting how you interact with colleagues, partners, and friends long after the childhood arguments end.
Which naturally leads us to a critical question, perhaps the most important question of our entire journey today. Are these invisible wounds permanent? If your brain has been shaped by chronic family stress, are you just stuck with a hypervigilant, exhausted mind forever?
Let's find out in Section 4, Breaking the Cycle.
The answer to that question is a resounding no. There is no way you're stuck like this. And the absolute hero of our story today is neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's remarkable ability to adapt, change, and physically heal itself through new experiences. The brain isn't hardwired like a computer. It's honestly much more like a muscle that can be retrained.
So, how do we use it? By intentionally giving your brain safe, new experiences. That might mean talking to someone you trust or setting healthy boundaries to protect your peace. It includes learning emotional regulation and mindfulness to bring your brain out of that hypervigilance and back into the present moment. And, importantly, it means seeking professional support when needed. Making these small changes and repeating them consistently actually rewires your brain to create healthier mental patterns over time.
But I want to make sure we're very, very clear on this point. Healing doesn't mean pretending the past never happened. It is definitely not about erasing your memories or pretending a toxic family history didn't exist. It is strictly about providing your nervous system with the new, safe, and supportive experiences it was previously denied. It's about teaching your brain that you are safe now.
Family problems absolutely leave invisible wounds. Your past may explain your struggles with focus or sleep today, but your biology is built to adapt. It absolutely does not have to define your future. Your story isn't over. We've spent a lot of time today talking about how deeply the brain can be hurt by an unsafe home environment. But the most powerful thing about the human mind is how remarkably it can heal. The capacity for recovery is built right into your biology. Healing is entirely possible, for sure, one step at a time. Changing your future always begins with understanding your mind. And now that you understand exactly what stress does to your brain and how neuroplasticity allows you to fix it, I want to leave you with this question. What step will you take today to begin reshaping your mind's future? Think back to those small changes, pick just one thing, and start teaching your brain that it is finally safe to relax. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to take that first step today.